Education is changing faster than ever. We can't ignore the research that shows instructional practices rooted in evidence lead to better outcomes for students and stronger school communities. At Educational Innovation 360, we partner with educators and leaders to elevate teaching through personalized instructional coaching, data-driven professional development, and student-centered teaching strategies.
With Transform Ed Consulting, we bring deep expertise in strategic planning, organizational transformation, and leadership development, ensuring the whole system is aligned for success, equity, and sustainable improvement.
Together, our goal is simple: to support schools and districts in transforming learning so that every student and educator can flourish. Stay informed, stay innovative, stay student-centered. Subscribe to Educational Innovation 360's YouTube channel to get the latest news and updates.
Hello, everyone. I'm David Johnson, Transform Ed Consulting, and we have as our guest today, Matthew Radcliffe. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing great today. Thanks, David.
Tell us where you are in the world.
I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana right now.
How's your weather today?
It's kind of cool. It's stopped snowing though. In fact, yesterday was the coldest day in 85 years on St. Patrick's Day.
85 years. Is there a St. Patrick's Day parade in Indianapolis? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm in San Antonio, and I attended IU Bloomington, so it's nice to have a fellow Hoosier here with me.
There we
Except
go.
you're not a Hoosier. You're a Boilermaker.
I am a Boilermaker. My oldest is a Hoosier, so when you have children that go places and you give them a lot of money, then it becomes harder to where your alliances lie, right? So,
well, we're both educators. I'm sure we'll have a fair to Midland conversation, despite being rivals.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here, Matt.
Absolutely.
Matthew Radcliffe, Master of Education, CEO of Raymond Educational Coaching, Indianapolis, Indiana, is creator of the Roots Framework, an approach to help schools build positive learning environments through aligned systems and shared values. He supports school leaders and teachers in strengthening school culture and climate by focusing on roots, relationships, ownership, opportunities, trust, and systems. With 20 plus years experience in urban schools, he has deep understanding of challenges educators face. He was twice named Teacher of the Year. He has held Dean of Students, Assistant Principal, and Equitable Support Coach leadership roles. He now collaborates with high-need school communities to develop proactive discipline structures, improve attendance, and create consistent practices that support social, emotional, and academic growth. You've done a lot of things. What was your teaching area?
So my teaching area was physical education. I was started as a K-5 PE teacher in Warren Township here in Indianapolis, Indiana. Even into my second year, my principal saying, "When are you going back to get your master's?" Those were like the farthest things from my mind, but that administrator saw things in me that I didn't see myself. And so it was a couple years later that I started that process and just kept on, people kept on, some people call it voluntelling, right? I was voluntold to have a few roles or join a few committees or lead a few things, but it led to me growing a great knowledge base and really tapping into the passion I have of helping schools have a positive and effective culture and climate.
Well, what led you to create Roots, and what would be some of the, you used the word foundation, what would be some of the foundational approaches or pedagogy or even evidence-based material that you use to develop Roots?
So at the basis of it all, there's not a building that I've walked into that doesn't have people working hard, right? However, sometimes we're working really hard in silos, right? Systems sometimes gets a bad name, but when we pair it with relationships, because we all educators know that relationships is a foundational piece of educating children, right? And so we have to pair it with relationships. Ownership is not only about the ownership, because when you say that in education, kids are like, or adults are like, well, kids have to have ownership of their behavior. Well, we're also talking about adults having ownership in the decisions and in the community that they're building together with each other, right? And so it involves those things and then opportunities. We know education itself is an opportunity, but the opportunities we have each and every day to just do something a little bit different that helps build upon a positive culture. And so those things together build a trust. And when we make sure that those things have systems, it doesn't feel like we're in it by ourselves, working as hard as we can, but that there's a system that will hold up the processes. I see so many times in buildings where they have a good process, but then the leader leaves and it falls apart, which means you had a good person, right? There are a lot of things, even when we have principals who tell me, oh, well, we got this great behavior person. Okay, what happens when they leave?
Yeah.
Right? Or can we have somebody else do that? No, well, then we don't have a system that helps support all students and all staff. And so,
Well, Matt, let's get into it. Our
let's do it.
title today is Addressing Behavior as Communication, and we have 4 bullets: build systems from the roots up for effective schools and school leadership, develop individual and leadership capacity to improve outcomes and build sustainable systems, develop shared values, common language, and aligned practices, help staff and students build skills to increase capacity to improve learning. Where would you like to start?
Let's start from building systems from the roots up.
Okay. Now, I'm going to assume that when you use roots here, you were speaking specifically of the framework that you've developed.
Yeah.
So let's jump into it. Build systems from the roots up for effective school and school leadership. Speak a little bit more about systems.
So when we're talking and looking at developing those systems from the roots up, it kind of goes with that third bullet of creating a common language. I ask people all the time to give me your definition of community. Well, when we have different shared lived experiences, those are different definitions. Go around the country and ask any teacher, hey, tell me your school's vision and mission. They're going to have to look it up, most likely, right? Because it's not really shared. It's been there from years ago when it was developed. Well, let's develop that together and start there so that that vision and mission can live out every single day and not just be something that we see on the screen.
Now Matt, sometimes that is problematic.
Mm-hmm.
When anyone is hired for a position, whether you be in leadership or be staff or even faculty, you might be introduced to the mission and the vision and the values and everything for the school corporation, for the school itself. Then if I'm being interviewed, or even once I'm onboarded, do I pick up something different, or do I assume those things and make them my own? And then to make them my own, how do we go about doing that?
Yeah, so what I ask teachers to do is not to memorize the whole thing, but to pick part of it that resonates with you. And when we pick part of it that resonates with you, I connect with it, and then plan, how am I going to have that live out in my classroom every day?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm a leader, how am I going to have that live out in my building, not only with my interactions with students, but with my interactions with families and staff as well?
Now Matt, you used the term roots, you developed that framework. Does the term and the actions apply to the teacher, the school, or does it apply to students? When we say relations, ownership, opportunities, trust, systems, who owns all that?
Who owns it?
Right.
The leader. We have to start with the leaders.
Okay.
Too many times we try to have programs start with teachers and things like that. And this is a framework, not a program, right? And so we have to start with the leaders to get them to really embody it. Leaders who tell teachers to build relationships, but the leader doesn't do it with the teachers is ineffective. Right? So we have to start with the leaders, and they have to own that framework as theirs, and then build in the systems of support. So when the leader leaves, the systems stay.
I'm sure you're familiar with this, that teachers will just say, all I got to do is outlive this guy or this gal, and they'll be gone. And this program, this framework, this system will be gone with them. How do you address that? You use the term capacity and sustainability. How do you address a program, a framework continuing after the leader who owned it departs?
Yeah, so some of that has to do with making sure that you have a team that encompasses different areas of stakeholders, right? So that the team moves the culture work together, and it's not the leader telling people what to do, but that the team understands the why to do it. And there might be 2 or 3 team members that come and go throughout the years, and new team members come on. But the basis of the team's work and the vision of the team's work stays intact so that that can continue to work. And they will see and feel that we're not only focused on kids doing well, but we're focused on building the capacity of the teachers and the skill of the teachers as well. We all want to get better, right? Sometimes we do a better job of self-teaching it, and sometimes we need others to come in and help support us in that learning.
Capacity. I once worked a project with a particular school that was known for a particular reading program.
Okay.
People come and go, as you said. Capacity. I arrive at a school, let's say, I'm the leader, and I bring Roots with me. I introduce this to people. I build the whole team's capacity to implement Roots. We're doing very, very well. We're doing it for 3, 4, 5 years or more, and people come and go. How do we build the capacity of the newcomers? Do we have continuing education? Do we have, what do we do to ensure that everyone remains on the same page?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have to educate and build our new teachers and new staff. And it's not just teachers, but especially your classified staff that is more fluid, right? And may come and go. You may have a classified staff that stays for 30 years, but for the most part, that staff comes and goes more. So we have to have intentional training times for them, but we also have to have intentional support people that they can go to. So every member of that culture type team has people they communicate, groups of people they communicate with, so that those people know, I forget what was said about this, or I don't know what to do, and I go to a person, right? So many times we aren't able to know, or we don't identify that person in the school system. And so that beginning teacher just makes it up, does what they can, does what they think's best, which is great in some moments, but sometimes we need more support, whether that be a teaching partner, whether that be you have the capacity on your staff to have, or the ability, because of funding, to have coaches that help coach teachers, right, and support them. But finding experienced people that understand your systems, be support people, and plan those interactions. Don't just say, hey, once in a while, check in with them, see how they're doing. But have intentional planning checks of what they're asking them and supporting them with.
Intentional is a good word. In the science of teaching, there's continual change. There's continual research that uncovers new, or let's say more effective approaches to education. How does Roots accommodate change in education, whether it be pedagogy or other types of topics or issues involving education?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I think it starts with roots and relationships, right? Now, over time, in that pendulum that swings in education, I have a good friend, Dr. Jeremy Coleman, who talks about relational equity. And he talks about we are moving from the compliance era to the relational era, right? The relationship was still the same. It used to be the relationship between student and teacher was a certain way, mainly focused on compliance. Do what I say because I'm the teacher, right? Which is probably the era that we grew up in, right? And now we're in the relationship era where that phrase, do what I say because I'm the teacher, doesn't work anymore. It's not effective, right? So the relationship has changed in that continuum, but the relationship still remains something that has to be built.
How does Roots, going back to your bullet, how does Roots affect effective schools and school leadership?
So it helps by us focusing on skills of teachers and skills of students. The topic of today, behavior is communication. That's not only true for kids, but it's true for adults, right? We behave a certain way. Usually when unwanted behavior happens, it happens because either a need has not been met, right? Talking about Maslow here, right? A need has not been met, safety, psychological safety, whatever it might be, or a skill needs developed. Now, a little bit of a caveat of that is I may have the skill, but I may not be accessing it in the hard moments, right? And so we also have to help not only our students, but our staff access the skills of maybe empathy in hard moments when a student has said something that really gets you in a certain place, right? How can we help you access that empathy skill in those moments as well? So it focuses on skill and building those skills, not just on what to do to get better scores, but helping build that, learning, but learning through application as well, right? We can learn all we want to, but if we're not applying it in the moments that are critical, that learning becomes ineffective.
Let's speak a little bit about the title for today's conversation, Addressing Behavior as Communication. I can't imagine what that means, but would you elaborate on and explain how behavior is communication?
Yeah, I can't tell you, I'll try to make it quick. Let me tell you a quick story. I went from elementary to a high school health and PE teacher, largest transition in my career. I was tying kindergartner shoes in PE class, and then I was teaching sex education in health class, right? Big transition. we had a student there. The counselor came to me and said, hey, I have a second semester. He's going to be a second semester senior. This kid has failed PE 3 times. And he's at risk of not graduating because we need a PE credit to graduate it in the state of Indiana. I said, help me, Matt, what can we do here? So I got to looking at and finding out there were more than just this kid who had failed PE multiple times. Many of them were at risk for being overweight and things like that. So what we did was we took and we combined a class of about 15 students who had failed PE multiple times, mainly because they refused to dress. And we put them in a class together. And I said, listen, you're in this class because we haven't passed, but you're also in this class because I want to see how we do together. And so we put students that I wouldn't say like-minded, but they were similar. Students who didn't want to go out and perform in front of the D1 athlete that has a commitment to Vanderbilt, right? And so they were embarrassed, maybe because of the locker room situation, because 300 kids are getting dressed at a time, maybe because of their skill or whatever. When we got them together, I said, this class is yours. We're going to work on life skills. We're going to work on walking. We're going to work on finding a way to be healthier, but it's your class. We did different things with transition, so they weren't dressing at the same time. All those kids passed because they dressed, they came in and participated. And so the student we started it for, he failed 3 times, not because he wasn't good at it, but because he was communicating, I'm embarrassed and I don't want to do this in front of others. What we did those 3 semesters previously, he got referrals for not dressing. He got referrals and in-school suspensions for skipping class because when he did come, he would put his hood up, go sit on the bleachers, and get yelled at by the PE teacher to dress. That was all communication. We had to understand what was being communicated.
I understand. So by doing certain things, the student communicated to, or was communicating, although it was not necessarily received, the student was communicating, there's something happening here. And if you were to hear what I'm saying behaviorally and inquire, you might help us solve this.
Yeah. Yeah. So behavior is communication, communicates a need is not met. We weren't providing a psychological safety place for him, which takes a moment to step back away from the behavior of the kid putting his hood up and refusing to, right? That's the defiance. Well, he won't do it because he doesn't want to. Well, why doesn't he want to?
Yeah. Right? That's the question that should have been asked.
Yeah.
I understand. Wow. That's good. That's good. Well, Matt, we have 3 other topics here. Where would you like to go next?
I don't know what my next, I think I connected the first one and the third one. Right? And so I can expand on that third one of shared values.
Yes, very, very good. I was thinking the same thing. Let's talk about shared values. And in a sense, when I spoke about a new leader coming into a building and saying, we're going to do this, and maybe it's implemented and it's done successfully and everyone's been carrying it along, how did that leader get others to share those values and share that language and align those practices?
Absolutely. So one of those things is that shared values, right? Many schools have a shared value of respect, responsibility, safety. Maybe yours school does, CORE or CHAMPS or whatever that acronym might be. And whether we develop it or we come into it, recommitting to those values is important. So tapping into asking your staff, what do you feel this means? What is important to you? What isn't? What are we doing currently that isn't working? What are we doing currently that we want to continue to reinforce? But getting feedback from your staff, right? Many times I've walked into buildings and done walkthroughs and somebody had up the acronym of TECH and they had words for it. My apologies. They had words for it, but teachers didn't know what it was because it had just been on the wall for the past 6 years. People walked by it and didn't notice it, right? So we not only have to agree upon them, but then we have to agree upon what does that look like and sound like in our common areas. And then we have to have lessons to teach that, not just tell it. So many times we tell kids the rules, we tell kids the expectations, but what does that really look like and sound like? Let's teach it, right? And so when we are on the same page with those, we also then, I'm going to bring this one up, we also then have to have the same definition of the word discipline. What does it mean? To you, discipline might mean something different than to me, right? Many educators would say, oh, the kids have no discipline. There's no discipline here. The kids are running the building. Well, what do you mean by discipline? Do you mean punishment? Do you mean consequences or do you mean learning? And so I've got into buildings where we do a whole PD with the staff about discipline and what the meaning of it is. And then at the end, I ask them all to submit their definition of discipline. And then I charge the leader with finding the commonalities in that definition. We then give it to the staff and say, this is what we're moving forward with about discipline in our building. Once we do that, everybody's more on the same page, right? I'm not mad and salty anymore as a classroom teacher because you didn't suspend them. Rather, you gave them extra pull-out social and emotional learning lessons to build a skill that they're missing. Now I understand the plan rather than, oh, they just sat in your office for 10 minutes, came back with a bag of chips and nothing happened.
Well, some people might call that consensus building, that you took input from them and you shaped it or massaged it so that there would be a common consensus on what those definitions would be.
Yeah.
Another term I've seen is calibrate. So let's say you're going to observe classrooms and you want every observer to have the same common definition of what good teaching looks like. Well, you do that in consensus building and calibrating what you will consider to be excellent teaching or teaching in need of improvement and so on.
I do that. We do that now. I do what I call a positive language walkthrough, where we focus on the number of positives or affective statements spoken versus the number of correctives or negatives. And when I go in, before I do the PD for staff, I collect data on what's our baseline. They don't know who I am, why I'm in their room, just that they're, but I also take the administrators with me so that we can calibrate, so that when I'm gone, they can help reinforce. Because sometimes a great PD is just a great day that one person came. For it to really be effective, it's got to have follow through from the people in the building every day.
Right. Oh, I lost it. There was something you said. I wanted to go back to it. I lost it. Maybe it'll come back to me in a little bit. Common language aligned practices. Oh, I know what it was. Discipline. When you ask the question, what is your definition of discipline? Of course, discipline also means the subject, the academic subject you're studying. Yeah. And do you get that kind of response when you ask about discipline? And in the etymology, the history of a word, how did the word discipline come to mean
punishment,
affecting behavior, or academic topics?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. I usually don't get what I do in my when I go in and talk to a staff is I give Webster's like 8 different definitions of it. That is included in one of them, right? Most educators don't include that when I just ask them define the word discipline.
And you know what? I started off by asking you what was your teaching area. Maybe I should have said, what was your teaching discipline? So go on. You show them the 8 definitions from Webster's.
And most of they with bosses in the room, most of them say, oh, it's learning, say, oh, this, but most of them, when they send a kid to the office, they expect some sort of discipline in forms of punishment, right? And so that is the unwritten definition. And when we clear the air about how we're moving forward as a community, when we're talking about behavior and the discipline of that, we have to move together. Otherwise, we're disjointed and not consistent with it.
Matt, let's take a quick look at the topics we have remaining. And we have just a few minutes remaining. So is there another topic that we should touch before we start wrapping up?
Yeah, so I just want to help your viewers understand when we're talking about behavior, right? The first thing that we look at is like a behavior replacement. And so whether, maybe a student's being physically aggressive. And so one of the behavior replacements we want is hands, feet, body to yourself type of replacement, right? To me, behavior replacement is able to be effective and happen when the student has the skill of maybe self-management, self-awareness, social awareness. I have the skill, but I'm having trouble in the moment accessing that skill to keep my hands, feet, and body to myself, right? Behavior replacement, helping the teacher focus on that and the student focus on that, keep hands, feet, and body to yourself, that helps the student access that skill. When that's not, right, we just try to give a behavior replacement. When that's not effective, doesn't mean the child's broken. It means they don't have that skill. And so now we have to identify. I use the thinking skills inventory. I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
No, I don't know it.
The thinking skills inventory, it assesses For older kids, we allow them to self-assess. For younger kids, we have somebody who knows them best, whether that be the classroom teacher, the dean, whoever might have a lot of contact with that student. But like executive functioning, language processing, self-regulation, those types of things, and relate those to those skills that need to be increased, need to be taught. So maybe I have self-management skills that need to be taught. So we have to find whatever SEL curriculum your building might be using, find these self-management skills that target those skills to be taught, and not only teach them. I see a lot around our country, those lessons being taught. And then they're like, well, we taught the lesson. I don't know what's still happening with the kid. He's not doing it right. However, the communication between the person teaching the skill and the classroom teacher that has them 7 hours a day isn't there. So as the classroom teacher, I don't know what skill you worked on, and I don't know what words to say to help them access the learning. It's the same frustration that many educators feel when they're giving a state test and they're not allowed to say anything, but they know the kid knows it, but they can't help them access it, right? So we have to communicate those lessons and those key points so that a teacher can be like, hey, remember your breathing right now. Oh, now I can access the learning I did with the social worker or the behavior specialist. But if I don't have that, it's hard for me to access it.
You touched a topic that will be our next conversation. Matt, we got to do this again. And I actually, from what you said just now, I'd like to go back to the topic of discipline. Because, okay, I want this child to be disciplined. Maybe we're saying, I want this child to learn another way of doing this or another way to channel that behavior. But let's come back to that in a different conversation.
I'd love to.
Yeah, we touched on a lot of stuff here. There's a lot of stuff, and we probably just scratched the surface. But what would be the takeaway you'd like people to have from your and my conversation?
So the takeaway I feel for administrators is to help yourself by developing systems of support for your teachers and your students. Because when everybody's running around, trying as hard as they can, putting everything into it, you're exhausted, but the system's not, there's no systems to help, right? And so we want to have a system to help support all those things.
Mm-hmm. And what would be the call to action? What do you want people to do with this knowledge?
So the call to action, I think, is mindset. Start looking at behavior, not only as communication, but as a skill set as well.
Yeah. And if people want to know more, how do they contact you?
Absolutely. Matthew Radcliffe on LinkedIn. My email is on your slide there as well. I also just put up the other day a Instagram of Raymond Ed Coaching. So look me up there and contact me. I'd love to be a thought partner with any of your audience.
Well, thank you for being with us today. This was a great conversation, and please, let's plan on continuing our conversation, this time around discipline.
Absolutely, David. Thank you so much.
Matthew Radcliffe, Master of Education, CEO of Raymond Educational Coaching in Indianapolis, Indiana. And please find him on LinkedIn and all of the other ways of contacting him. And I would be remiss if I did not give credit to my colleague and friend, Cassandra Williams. She's the brains behind Educational Innovation 360 Degrees, and she allows us to use her platform. I'm David Johnson, again, from Transform Ed Consulting, and there's a list of all of the services that we provide. Please find us in LinkedIn or find us on the internet, and we look forward to working with you. And Matt, again, it's a pleasure having you as our guest.
It was wonderful to be here. Thank you, David.